let's talk about giving a fuck and why you really shouldn't give a fuck. Let me explain. There's the book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, which I did read, but I honestly don't remember anything from it. What I will say this is I've noticed when I watch a lot of these videos, dating videos, the guys usually say women are attracted to guys who don't give a fuck. And that used to flabbergast me. I used to be like stunned, like how does one acquire that illusory trait of not giving a fuck? I feel like I found it. I feel like I figured it out. And it's not that you don't give a fuck, it's that you don't give a fuck about them. Let me explain. If you're married to somebody or you have a committed relationship with somebody, you obviously give a fuck in the macro. But when it comes to like an argument, you might not give a fuck if it's a minuscule argument. And so it's not that you don't give a fuck, it's that you give more of a fuck about something else. So I made a video about my life's work recently and talking about how creating this movement, this production studio, this idea, 0.5, is my purpose. I have no hesitation in saying that is what I'm here to do. And when I reminded myself of that and said, you know what, I'm going to talk about it a lot because that's who I am. I'm going to talk about it. When I really embraced that, I realized, oh shit, everything that isn't, all my time and attention that isn't going to that is a waste of time. With obviously respect to like my family and my friends, my close priorities, like that I give a fuck about. But I give so much of a fuck about this that any other little problem, like with these girl problems, these problems I've had, have really just been time sucks where I've voluntarily given my time for very little in return, or oftentimes nothing in return. And so, if you want to not give a fuck, you have to give a fuck about something more important. A few months ago, I always relate this back to women because I love women. I love the nature of women, as challenging as it is. It's intoxicating. But a couple months ago, I asked my buddy, I texted him, this is a guy that's very experienced with women, and I said, hey, what priority do you place women in your life? His response, last. Oh. And for some reason I needed clarification. What do you mean by that? He's like, well, I come first. My family, friends, my work, they're last. And I was like, whoa. That's preposterous. Like, what? And so he is someone who doesn't give a fuck. Because he gives more of a fuck about his family, his friends, his work, himself, as it should be. You can't pour from an empty cup. And so I've been learning that a woman's nature, that feminine nature, is to pull you off your center, pull you off your edge. You can read David Data talks about this. And it also relates a lot to like semen retention, right? Because in David Data's book, The Way of the Superior Man, he talks about how, I don't remember, it relates to this. I don't remember the specific thing he was accentuating or emphasizing, but it's something along the lines of like, don't listen to her when she wants to weaken you, something like that. And it was like, the story was this guy and this girl are having sex, and she tells him like she wants him to come, okay? And he does it, and then she's disappointed because she was trying to pull him off his center to see how strong he was, and he relented. He gave in. He made himself weaker. And there's a lot of suggested videos on my channel, on my YouTube homepage, about semen retention. And a lot of these videos, I don't, totally align with all the religious stuff related to it, but I do resonate with the idea that abstinence, retention, makes you stronger spiritually, energetically. As someone who's done it before, it's certainly, I've experienced it. I've gone a year more on retention, and there's a whole nother way of viewing life that was then accessible to me. So I remember seeing this one video on there I watched briefly of this show, this fictional show. I think it was, or movie. I think it was called like Ironclad, I believe it was called. And the guy was like a Templar knight, and this woman kept trying to pull him off his path, and he kept ignoring her. Frankly, like, I'm sticking to my mission, my purpose. And eventually, he hooked up with her. And I think, like, I mean, according to this clip, I think he then dies. So, like, which is a bit dramatic. But I believe what happens is something happens at the fucking Templar place, and he dies as a result. And not to say that had he not spilled his seed, he wouldn't have died, but there's an example of feminine nature trying to pull you off your path. And so when you don't give a fuck, you're not pulled off, you're not swayed easily, you're centered, you're focused, and that's where you should be. And if you don't know what your purpose is, if you don't know what you give a fuck about, then just keep doing things that interest you, that make you curious, and you will find it.